deals are unbeatable during the tent sale at Simmons Sporting Goods. Keep them coming back with an American Hunter tripod feeder, just $69.99. No one compares with the more than 40 models of game cameras by WGI, Browning, Covert, Spy Point, and more, starting as low as $29.99. Drop your trophy with the all-new Parker Blazer crossbow package, only $499.99. We're open 8 to 7 Monday through Saturday and 11 to 5 on Sunday. Or shop the tent sale from home at SimmonsSportingGoods.com.
Welcome to Citizen Sports, covering all of Ouachita Parish athletics. Now here's your host, Matt Reynolds and Jake Martin.
Welcome back, everyone, to Citizen Sports. It's August. Finally. The wait is nearly over. Football season's around the corner. Matt Reynolds, along with Jake Martin, bringing you the Citizen Sports Podcast each week, and now proudly sponsored each week by Simmons Sporting Goods. Jake, about 2 years ago, we had an idea we thought would work for a podcast. We were right, and we certainly appreciate Simmons Sporting Goods out of Bastrop getting on board with us. How you doing today?
In the words of Conor McGregor, baby, we done it.
That's right.
It's funny because I remember, whenever I was leaving my last job, I called you and we were just talking, about what we would do when I officially joined the team. And this was one of the big things we talked about because it was something I tried at my last job and we didn't get the support. And you were basically waiting on someone to come on so you could do this type of thing. And so it was just a perfect storm. And here we are. Now we're sponsored by Simmons Sporting Goods. It's pretty awesome.
You can check out our stuff each week on iTunes by searching Hannah Publications, also on YouTube by searching Citizen Sports, Podbean, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and a number of other places. But we certainly appreciate them. Go by and visit them on Washington Street in Bastrop, or go to their website, which is amazing. Anything you could possibly want as far as your outdoor needs. I got all my camping gear from there. It's incredible, but the website's great, but I encourage you to go check out the store over there in Bastrop. It's really incredible. Jake, Slade Bolden has been a big topic of the show the past few weeks. That's because he's planning any day to announce where he's going to college. And, of course, he eliminated LSU last week. And I believe it's coming up, maybe tomorrow, Thursday. What's your feeling on this as the date approaches for Slade?
Yeah, he actually texted me last night and said that he will be announcing Thursday. Did not want me to tweet out the specifics because he didn't want a lot of random people showing up. But yeah, he's excited. I feel like, and I've kind of felt this all along, TCU's the team to beat. Yeah. Right. I mean, it just seems like a perfect marriage for him. It's a school that has shown interest from the early days. I mean, I think other than Washington, they were the first big school that really jumped on Slade. And that goes a long way for recruits, by the way. And you combine that with the type of offense they run. You look at the success that the players from this area have had there. They haven't gone there and been lost in the crowd. They've been standouts. You just think about Cavante Turpin and John Diarse last year or the past couple of years. And you combine the fact that if he goes there, he has a chance to play baseball. And I think that's important to him. Although I did talk to him last week, and I asked him again about baseball. I've asked him about it a couple of times, and he said, I'm not going to make my decision solely based on that. He said, I'm just going to do what's best in my interest. I think he was trying not to tip his hat. But I did ask him, I said, how are you going to announce? He said, I'm going to have one hat. And so then I asked him, well, what color is that hat? And he jokingly told me white. So, I'm interested in seeing what happens, but I'll be shocked if he picks Alabama over TCU.
Yeah, I think most people that have followed this will be. And I talked with Sonny Ship this morning in 247 Sports, and he told me months ago, before Alabama even offered Slade, that a lot of these schools are interested in him into sports. And I read just a couple days ago where both Alabama and TCU, of course, were letting him know that that's a possibility there. And I don't think that was the possibility at LSU. I don't think that was ultimately why he made the decision to eliminate LSU from the process. But I think it played some sort of factor. And you mentioned that most people think it's going to be TCU. Well, 247 Crystal Ball says 100%. They've been wrong before, but that's pretty good odds. You asked him about LSU last week, and this is what he had to say.
Final two.
Yeah, obviously growing up an LSU fan, I love it, but, Coach O is a great guy. Nothing wrong with it. Just, to go to a school where I want to go, I feel like I needed the whole coaching staff on board, and I just didn't feel that from LSU. And, it would have been easy probably if they would have shown me as much love as these other schools that, they didn't. So it's nothing against them, but that's just how it is.
What do you think about that?
Well, I kind of know a little more than I've talked about just because, I've talked to some people really close to him, and they've really shared the insight, and they didn't want it to come out. They told me all off the record, but he basically, I love that he said that, because what that does is that shifts the blame from him. Those who are LSU fans who automatically go, well, what's wrong with these Louisiana kids wanting to go elsewhere? Slade basically told you right there, I'm an LSU fan. I've always been an LSU fan. I wanted to go there, but I did not get the same attention that I got from these other schools. And Ed Orgeron isn't the problem. Ed Orgeron, he's called him before. He said he's like my great uncle. I mean, he texts me all the time. He recruited me hard. But at the end of the day, Ed Orgeron isn't going to be making the offensive decisions. Others will be. And so I'll just leave it at that.
I can't help but draw a comparison here to Fedarian Mathis in a way, because
it's exactly like that, Matt.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that too, because you remember when Fedarian announced, he said that Pete Jenkins,
right.
He came out and said, he said, Pete Jenkins did not recruit me. He just did not come after me like these other coaches did. And I think this is one of those things where LSU picks their guys. These coaches, they maybe some of them want, the Lawrence Keys from McDonough 35 and, Terrace Marshall from Parkway. Of course, everybody wants Terrace Marshall. I've also heard that they got a kid in Florida that they really like. But I think they've kind of they're sold on those kids playing the position that Slade was going to play. Not Terrace Marshall. I think he'll be more of an outside receiver, of course. But these other kids, these other slot kids, they're banking on them. Well, the only problem is, what happens if you don't get them? And what happens when Slade Bolden goes to – what if he goes to Alabama? What if he ends up being a breakout player for them, and you're stuck with that same situation, kind of like with Arkansas last year? Was it Jared Cornelius? My mind's kind of going blank. The Louisiana kid that, hurt him. Of course, Dak Prescott with Mississippi State. I mean, this has happened quite a bit. So you better make sure you get your man if this is the type of strategy you're employing.
So check WashitaCitizen.com later in the week. I'm sure once it happens, Jake will put it out there immediately. Also, follow him on Twitter at Jake Martin OC. Later in the show, we're going to get some impact players because that's what we do leading up to the football season. But have to mention some basketball news locally. Quietly and quickly, Derek Lopez left West Ouachita after 2 years for another job, and forcing West Ouachita athletic director Mitch Thomas to find a new head basketball coach. A lot of good things happening over there at that school with the new gym and all. Jake named Daniel Dalleo last week the new head boys basketball coach. What do you know about him?
Well, he has 6 years of coaching experience. He was the head coach at Epps for 3 years, and then was on Mangum's staff last year as an assistant before obviously getting this head coaching job at West Ouachita. I think it's a combination of.
You said on Mangum staff?
On Mangum staff.
Okay,
yeah.
They had one of their best years in like a decade.
They did
last year. Yeah,
they sure did. They had a great season last year in a district that could have been argued as the toughest in the state. Rayville, Faraday, Sterlington was really good. So I think it's a combination of things as to why West Ouachita went with him. I think one of the big things was he wants to go out there and he wants to move to, Calhoun and really intermingle with those people, become part of that community, which was really big. And of course, he says he wants to stay there a long time, and they're looking for longevity and they're looking for people to really buy in.
And I'm really liking, Jake, what Mitch Thomas and company is doing over there. Matt Middleton, bringing him in, that's a lot of excitement, enthusiasm, I think, around that program, and bringing Dalleo in, getting some young blood, some guys that are like dedicated to that community. It's exciting, but school certainly growing and has a lot of support.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good marriage. I think Dalleo is excited. And, of course, you've got that great facility. I think that's a big thing. Now, he faces sort of a similar challenge that Matt Middleton does. It's not a football school. It's not a basketball school. It's a baseball and softball school. So there are some challenges there. But if you put in the hard work and you can get if you can get the athletes to come out and play, who knows what can happen.
Well, we haven't talked since you had a chance to sit down with the old ball coach, Ed Orgeron, last week. I was thoroughly impressed with how he handled that crowd. Of course, we know that he's a top-notch recruiter, but he really looked to be in his element over there at Bayou Landing.
Oh, he was the man. He walked in. He knew he was the most popular man in the room, and he owned that crowd. His charisma is what stood out to me. I mean, obviously, this guy's a great talker because his strength is recruiting as a coach. But I got to actually catch up with him and ask him about some of the local guys, Cameron Lewis and Rashard Lawrence. I really wanted to get his take on Rashard because everywhere O has been this summer, even coaches like Dave Aranda, they've been high on Rashard and talking about how he won the starting job as a defensive end in the spring. And obviously, they expect big things out of him. This is what he had to say about him.
What do you expect out of him this year?
Well, first of all, Rashard was the number one player in the state. We went through a ferocious battle to get him, and it meant a lot to LSU. Rashard is one of the things I'm most proud of. Has a 4.0 grade point average right now. He's done fantastic. He's going to be a leader of our football team. He's going to start at right defensive end. He had a tremendous spring. I just love watching him grow in NFL, man. He is growing into a man right now that will be a pillar on our football team.
Got to ask about another local guy, Cam Lewis.
Yeah.
Obviously, that secondary is very deep, but maybe he gets some contribution in the special teams.
I was just talking to his coach. Cam has a lot of experience. He's a great young man. He's going to get some snaps this year, and definitely will get a bunch of snaps in special teams.
You got to love that accent, right, Matt?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's, not only do people love Louisiana, but he's going to get a lot of national fans because, people love foreign. They just, especially when it comes to Louisiana, they connect that with the food, the music, and the culture and everything else. But I don't think it's a surprise, Jake, that Rashard Lawrence has burst on to the scene as quickly as he has. I know I can remember watching the bowl game last year. And, of course, that was the first we really saw him, make an impact, sacking the Heisman Trophy winner. Yeah. And I think there's a lot more for that to come in his career.
I agree 100%. And obviously, I think that was probably the easiest game he played in because did Louisville even have an offensive line out there?
Yeah, right.
I'm still wondering if they did. But, I expect huge things out of Rashard Lawrence this year.
We're going to take a quick break, pay the bills. We'll be right back. We're going to touch on some impact football players from the area. Don't go anywhere.
Get strapped during the tent sale at Simmons Sporting Goods. Try the perfect concealed carry option, a Taurus 709 Slim 9mm, only $179.99. Take no chances when you carry a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380, just $329.99. On the best for less, pick up the new HK VP9, only $599.99. We're open 8 to 7 Monday through Saturday and 11 to 5 on Sunday. Or shop the tent sale from home at SimmonsSportingGoods.com.
All right, what if I told you that a junior had 190 tackles? The year before, as a sophomore, he had 130. But that isn't his most impressive feat. Nope, it's J.B. Gullatt's classroom skills. A 30, yeah, that's right, folks, a 3.0 on the ACT. But J.B. wants to even top his tackle feat this year, Jake. And I'm not sure about the history books on this, but it hasn't been that many ever to get 200 in this area. It'd be quite a feat.
Well, his 190 was a school record last year, so I can't imagine, there being, I guess, much more than that in the area. But listen, Matt, if I wouldn't have seen him getting offered by all these Ivy League schools like Harvard, I would have never thought to ask him about, what he made on his ACT, simply because if you watch him play, this is a hard-nosed kid. He's one of the toughest kids on this team. I remember he was getting into it with another player last year. I want to say it might have been the John Curtis game. Of course, that game was big because of the eye pokes and everything. We've been through that. But I think he was getting into it with maybe one of the offensive linemen. And I just remember some of the kids on the sideline who weren't playing at West Monroe, they were saying, oh, JB would tear that guy apart. Like, he has this persona, especially on that team, that he is just one of their baddest dudes on the team. And you watch the way he plays, a physical kid. I just would have never thought he would be that smart. And not to say football players aren't smart. I mean, I was a football player, and I'm not saying I'm smart, but I know what it's like.
You're not going to call yourself dumb, are you?
I'm not going to call myself dumb either. But let me just say this, Matt. And we've interviewed a lot of brilliant football players before. I mean, but getting back on track with JB, his instincts, his hard-nosed approach to the game, it makes him an invaluable piece to this defense. And even though you have to replace a guy like Jacob Adams over there, his fellow linebacker who had, almost just as good a season as he did. I mean, Jacob Adams was phenomenal. And actually going to that, I talked with a coach that played them in the first round. He was on the staff, and he said those linebackers, we didn't have a chance. We just didn't have a chance with those linebackers. But getting back to JB, I just feel like he is, you want to highlight kids with these impact players. And it'd been easy to highlight Slade Bolden, but Slade's been highlighted enough, I think. JB was the 5A Defensive Player of the Year last season, and he is. I'm not counting him out of 200 tackles this year, Matt. I just think that highly of him.
God, it just seems like that'd be involved in every single tackle. It's hard to imagine somebody get even 190, much less 200. But I really liked his quote, talking about this upcoming season, something we've talked about that drives this West Monroe Rebel team to get another ring. Didn't exactly let what happened in the Dome last year slip away out of his mind, something that's obviously pushing Gullatt.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, he said he's taking it personally, and that's what Slade Bolden has said, and of course Arledge has kind of said it roundabout. Arledge has been way more political about it, but these kids, I mean, JB said that he was embarrassed to get to the state championship game, to get to the Dome and play in front of all those people, and to lose like that. It was embarrassing, and so I think when you're faced with those type of things, it can be a good thing or it can be a really bad thing. But with programs like West Monroe, I think it can be a really good thing because you've got a great coaching staff who's going to get this team ready. And, hey, just reminding them every day that you remember, Landry Walker put a beating on y'all in the last game of the year. I think that's going to really motivate this team to do something special this year.
Without a doubt. Let's move on down the line as far as impact players are concerned. Peyton Parker won the starting job at quarterback for Matt Middleton in his new offense over at West Ouachita this summer. A guy that's many people might not know a lot about, but it seems like Coach Middleton has a lot of great things to say about him.
Yeah, well, he didn't play last year. He's a baseball player. He was starting shortstop. He had the daunting task of having to replace Zach Watson at shortstop. And so obviously he was compared to Zach, through all last season, and that was unfair to Peyton. But now, Peyton's going to come out for football, and Matt Middleton said, he's known as a baseball player, but you give him 2 years with me, and because of his height, because of his arm strength, and because of how quickly he's absorbing this offense, I feel like by the end of his senior year, you'll have a lot of people interested in him football wise. And so that's how highly that Matt Middleton thinks of him. And I think that, you needed a new face back there at quarterback because obviously Matt Middleton's changing this offense from, 3 yards in a cloud of dust to spreading it wide open. And I'm interested to see what Peyton Parker could do. Obviously Parker's going to pitch some this year too for West Ouachita. So he has that arm strength. And with the way that Middleton's telling me how, Parker's picking it up, don't be surprised to see him break out this season.
Yeah, boy, getting compared to Zach Watson, that's got to be tough. Oh, jeez.
It's awful.
Let's go down the road a little bit over to 165. Skylor Wilhite is one of these players, a lot like Slade. We've been calling his name quite some time. For OCS, he's played a lot of football over there. But last year got a chance to change positions, and he excelled.
Yeah, I thought this was a fun story because, last year we were preparing for Garrett Otwell to be the starting tailback. And, Garrett is a great athlete. And I was looking for him to be a breakout player. Well, all of a sudden he gets sick before the season, and Skylor Wilhite, who's a fullback who played defense, is, hey kid, go in there. You're the starting tailback now. And man, he really thrived in it. I mean, just the production he had, not only as a running back but as a returner. He was, I believe, he was an all-district returner, and so he was great for OCS last year, and I think he's going to be even more important this year because you don't have Grant Fitzhugh back there anymore. You've got you've got some new faces. You're going to have most likely Turner Carr starting at quarterback. He's the one that enters the season with the most experience. And so beside him, you have Skylor Wilhite, who proved that he's kind of like Josh Pennebaker, Matt. If you remember Pennebaker a couple of years ago, he was very physical back, but had deceptive speed, was able to run away from opponents. And I think that with Skylor Wilhite, you're going to see an even better season than you saw last year. And Skylor told me, he said, my goal entering this year is to be the leading single-season rusher in the history of OCS. And that's a daunting task, but with the year he had last year, I'm not putting it past him.
I wonder if Pennebaker holds that record, but he's got to be right up there because it was the season he had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ouachita Parish High School lost an incredible athlete off last year's team, Devian Warren, who's up in Fayetteville now. But people that don't know about Dylan Roberts, you're sleeping because this guy here is electric at that running back position.
Yeah, I think I can describe Dylan with one sentence. You had, with Devion Warren in the same backfield, Dylan Roberts was the offensive team MVP last season. Okay, if that doesn't say enough about this kid, he led Ouachita in rushing. Okay, I believe he had around 1,400 rushing yards for this team. Had 9 rushing touchdowns. He's going kind of like Skylor. You got a new quarterback back there with Jabari Johnson. So obviously Dylan's going to be, they're going to be counting a lot on his production at the running back position. Now, what I guess the best attribute of Dylan Roberts is his ability to break tackles, and he's kind of like you almost relate it to. You remember when Trenton Holiday was at LSU, and he was so fast, but he wasn't big at all, but he was able to break tackles simply because of his speed and athleticism. I see a lot of that in Dylan Roberts. He breaks tackles despite his size. And, I got to go out there and watch him work a little bit with his team. And his team, they think a lot about him. And actually, when I tweeted out the story on him, I can't tell you how many retweets I got with Ouachita players saying he's a dog, he's going to be a beast. And they just think a lot of him, and he's going to be one of the leaders of this team.
Yeah, and, just real quickly, Ouachita, I know you hadn't had a chance to really dig deep into them, but losing a player like Warren that's been so critical to their success offensively for the past couple years, do you see them falling off a little bit offensively, or do you think because of Dylan Roberts' abilities back there that they're able to kind of push forward?
No, I really don't see them falling off, and this is why. They return 5 offensive linemen with experience.
Well,
that's huge. That's number one. Number two, I believe, I've said this before, I think they have the best wide receiver core in the area. And I'm mainly talking about C.J. Brown and Josh Newton. Those guys are phenomenal, okay? If you don't know those guys, you're going to be surprised to see them making these plays. And they kind of came on last year. Nobody knew who they were before the season last year, and then they had, breakout seasons. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can do offensively, even without Devion Warren.
Well, we'll certainly continue to preview the prep football scene in the weeks headed up to the season, as it is inside a month now. Cannot wait. We want to send a special thank you to Cinnamon Sporting Goods. They'll be our title sponsor throughout the season. Can't not thank you enough. Find Jake at Jake Martin OC. Find all our work at WashitaCitizen.com. Have a good week, bud.
See you, buddy.
Comfortable.